Hi everyone. Thank you for joining us online today for Friday Focus. For those of you that might not have joined one of these talks before, Friday Focus is an online talk series that is hosted by the Hunterian, and we are the museum and art gallery at the University of Glasgow. In each edition of these talks, we hear from a different speaker or speakers, and we tend to look at exhibitions and displays that are happening across our venues, as well as research that goes on here and across the University of Glasgow, and all the exciting work that happens behind the scenes with our collections. So today we're going to be looking at our latest exhibition that's on currently at the Hunterian Art Gallery, and that is Views of Glasgow, a window into communities. The exhibition combines iconic paintings of the city with objects, artworks, and archival material. And it asks questions such as who owns space? What does community mean to you today and in the future? And it considers the legacies of empire and shifting identities across the city, as well as other themes. Members of the Woodlands community, Sapna, Josie, Vicky, and Fozia, worked alongside the Hunterian team and Hunterian art curator and Allow on this exhibition, and it was co-curated collaboratively. And I'm really pleased today to be joined by Fozia and Vicky, representing the community co-curators that worked on this exhibition. We're going to have a bit of a chat about their perspectives working on this project, and then there'll be some time for you to ask your questions. And you can do that by popping your questions in the speech bubble, which you can find at the bottom of your screen, and I will read those out for you. So welcome, Fozia and Vicky. I just wondered if we could start by going back to the beginning of this project, and if you could talk a little bit about how you all came to be involved in this exhibition.
Hello. Hi. So we were kind of members of the community, and there was a call out and an email that went around to interested parties to have a kind of introduction to what the project was about and whether we wanted to get involved. And there was an initial meeting showing us some paintings from the collection of Glasgow University. So that was our first introduction. We watched a slideshow by which Anne kindly brought along to give us a taste of the pictures that were in the collection, and we were kind of briefed about what the story was and kind of invited to respond to the actual pictures. And Vicky, you might want
We,
to.
we all sort of we're all kind of invited by Sapna. We'd all had sort of various connections with Woodlands community. I used to work there, and other people were involved in the sort of general area and had done like workshops and stuff. But we're all artists, so the first meeting, I remember it was quite exciting. It was winter, wasn't it? In the
Yeah.
workspace. And we all introduced ourselves and talked about our practice. And then, yeah, we were told about all these paintings in the archive, and yeah, so it was.
And we had a good chat about the actual paintings one by one,
Yeah.
what our initial responses were to them, how we felt about them. And then in subsequent meetings, we started to really take the kind of themes of the pictures and the stories and the narratives that we wanted to tell behind the pictures. So that was quite an exciting kind of next step forward. What stories do you want to tell? And we were very kindly guided by um, Anne and Rosa, they were both crucial to kind of guiding us with the kind of stages and the knowledge that we maybe didn't know of how exhibitions were put together.
Amazing, thank you. And Fozia, you just mentioned that like the next stage was for you to kind of have a look at the stories that you wanted to tell. And I wondered maybe if you could talk a little bit about like what inspired those stories or what inspired some of the questions that you're asking in the exhibition.
Well, first of all, we kind of really kind of took and we spent a good few, can you remember, maybe 3 meetings, just brainstorming anything that kind of came to mind, that the actual historical pictures that came up. Like for example, if there was a picture, of the a sweet shop of as you can just see that coming up, of Glickerman's, which was one of the oldest sweet shops in Glasgow. We tried to kind of put all those words under a theme. The overarching theme of the whole exhibition was going to take a community perspective, bearing in mind that whole partnership was kind of with Woodlands community, which was a community hub, a place where people meet. And we kind of responded to the paintings from that perspective, and he came up with 6 overriding themes. One of them was nostalgia, looking at the old sweet shops. One was university, east and west. One of them was community spaces, and kind of using garden spaces and how people take space up, kind of areas that are not claimed spaces. And then we've got empire and propaganda, and then pollution canals, and zooming in and zooming out. So there are 60, and the exhibition is kind of laid out like that as well.
But I think that makes it sound quite simple, Fuzzier. And it was
Yeah.
there was a point where it was kind of like completely overwhelming. And
Oh yeah, no, that's true
we
as
kind
well.
of
Yeah, it
we've
was it
done
was overwhelming.
we've done quite a lot of we did a bit of individual research initially, didn't we, around some of the paintings. And then we just had we all had sort of different ideas. And then we had that brainstorming session where I felt like it just got completely out of
Overwhelmed, yeah.
control. Yeah, because we just wrote down everything that we could think of. But then it was weird. It suddenly sort of coalesced into these 6 themes, as Fuzzy said, and
The
uh,
simplified version.
under the big umbrella of community. But and once we decided that we wanted community to be the main theme, it enabled us to sort of see the paintings in a different way, and to sort of bring forward some of the voices that we felt often not heard in a sort of exhibition like this. So yeah, to try and get the grassroots voices, and to bring in other elements that were more of a sort of fragmented view, maybe of um, of Glasgow, rather than this kind of like nice sort of framed landscapey type view. I don't know if I put that very well, but
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. Yeah, Vicky, you just mentioned like including community and grassroots voices. And I just wondered if either one or both of you could speak a little bit about like whose voices and whose stories are included in the exhibition and in the interpretation.
I suppose we wanted. I can. Shall I go first, Fuzzy?
Yeah, yeah, go for it. Go for
I
it.
suppose like we wanted to include the voices of some of the people that were depicted in the paintings, but maybe didn't seem to have a voice. So, like the Joan Erdley, there's a sort of child drawing on well, it looks like she's just drawn on the wall, and it felt like people that occupied the city, not necessarily the elite who owned it, but the people that occupied it, their voices weren't so heard. So we wanted to sort of bring those voices in. Also, new Scots, so voices of different community groups, different ethnic groups, and also activists, people that had been sort of protesting. So and that sort of, again, it opened it up to other, bringing in different artworks that sort of supported those voices. But I think that's, yeah.
I think the other thing was that, each of us as individuals had our own voices. And I think that really comes through in the kind of depth of the exhibition, in that our own lived experiences and like our own contacts, our own art practices, made us respond to the works in our own way. and that I think is reflected in the exhibition, kind of probably subconsciously or kind of in between the lines, as it were. Because if you took a different set of four people, they would choose completely different things, even if they had the same themes.
Yeah. It seemed like the paintings were sort of open enough for lots of different interpretations, but because of our backgrounds, yeah, we came up with the themes and brought in different artworks that we thought related to those paintings.
Yeah, I wondered if you could maybe talk a little bit about those additional works that have been brought in and who maybe a few of like the local artists and creatives that are featured in some of the selections that you've added to the displays.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things we were trying to do was to pair up the older works with uh, new works or contemporary works or things that had happened in the community. For example, Annabelle had written a book. You probably know more about that.
Satna, Annabelle, and Babs.
Annabelle, yeah. So I'll let you talk about that, Vicky.
It's okay. It's okay. It's just it was Annabelle illustrated the book.
It was a
It
book.
was conceived during it came out of the sort of climate crisis and COP26, and it was Sapna, who's one of the co-curators, Babs Nigriga, and Babs wrote the story, as far as I understand, and Annabelle Wright illustrated it, and it was in response to the John Knox painting, we thought, which was about sort of empire and a kind of very sort of typical view of Glasgow as the sort of second city of empire, with the John Knox painting of the column in Glasgow Green. So we thought quite a good response to this was this book that the group had written, which is called "What Starts Here Ends Here," and it's about how the Industrial Revolution started in partly started in Glasgow with James Watt, Watty as he becomes in the book, and it ends kind of with the sort of climate protests and COP26. So it brings us back to the sort of people and the protesters, and it's a really great little book. And Babs read from it a couple of weeks ago in the Hunterian, which really brought it to life. And it's available in the shop. This little book, but yeah, it's a really sort of it really brings Glasgow back down to the sort of the roots.
Grassroots level, yeah.
Yeah. And there was the Mitch Miller. Tomorrow there's going to be a workshop that Mitch is running, and I thought the clay pits, which is just up on the screen, the clay pits dialectogram would be a good thing to include in the discussion about industry and pollution, because the clay pits has been redeveloped, and it's become a nature reserve, and it's quite an amazing space. And it used to be quite I wrote the little bit of interpretation about this. It used to be quite a slightly scary place. There used to be I used to work in a rehab just up in Possil, and I used to walk along the canal, and it just had a different atmosphere, a little bit unsafe. And people didn't really use it, but since it's been made into this nature reserve, it's absolutely fantastic. And Mitch Miller has worked with the clay pits. I can't remember what the name of the group is actually. The clay pits nature reserve people, and created this dialectogram, which is it's a methodology that he uses to make sure everybody's voices are heard. So he interviews lots of people and that are using the space, and includes them all in this one sort of, it's usually like a 1 meter square detailed drawing. He's a professional drawer, and he's developed this technique, and it's a very sort of inclusive methodology, and they come out really, really beautifully. So I wanted to include that. it's a good way of including people's voices. Sorry about my voice, by the way. I've got a cold.
Oh.
Thank you. And so, yeah, you've just mentioned a couple of the names of other artists and creators that you've included, but were there people that you didn't know of yourselves that you'd like come to know through the process of this exhibition?
Well, I knew the people that were. I'd met Mitch once, so I didn't really know him, but I got to know him. But the other people I already knew that did the What Starts Here Ends Here book. What about yours, Fozia? You introduced.
Well, yeah, I didn't know Mitch Miller and the graffiti artist, which is from they were from the Grateful Gallery. And Josie, the other co-curator, is not with us today, and she had a contact with Anne. So that was really nice to bring everybody's kind of lived experience with knowing these artists and their work to the gallery space as well.
And the banner as well. You brought.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so the banner was an historical kind of piece of so there were 12 banners created in Glasgow City of Culture 1990 when it was celebrating its year of culture. And a lot of people, because it's quite a long time ago now, don't know that these exist. They do exist in their original forms in the Glasgow Museum's archive, I believe. So the ones that are in the exhibition are a hanging kind of digital copy of two of the banners. And they were created with different community groups coming together and making those textile pieces. And so we do have a kind of textile theme kind of in one of the sections that kind of speaks very much in conversation with the painting that is of the weavers' cottages. And also we have a quilt that was made in Woodlands by a group, a people of colour group who came together on weekly sessions that made that quilt. We felt that textiles and making textiles often happened in community settings in different types of groups, and it was quite a nice visual way to bring that to the gallery space. And the actual banners themselves tell a lot of stories behind. I mean, it took a whole year to make all those banners in different community settings. I mean, it's a shame we couldn't get the actual original banners, which show the detail. But again, at least, it's something that people have forgotten about and they're being brought to the gallery space.
Thank you. I just had a question about there's a couple interactive elements in the exhibition. So you've got, the bench that's central to it with the yarn bombing that people can add to, and then there's also the feedback wall as well. And I just wondered maybe if you could speak a little bit about the significance or why it was important to you to have those kinds of elements.
And there's the photography as well, the little Polaroid type pictures. I think it was just important to just try and engage people, so it wasn't presented as a finished. This is our view of Glasgow, and that's that. It's still open to interpretation, and the yarn bombing. I mean, initially we were thinking about actually getting or trying to get a bench from Woodlands Community Garden and bring it in, but it was a very precious bench, so it was a bit complicated to do that. It was a sort of memorial to somebody that had died there, so we thought that would open up too much of other stuff. So we got a garden bench, which Fozia also did introduced a painting of that as well, one of her prints. But yeah, we had this garden bench, and we just wanted to bring it to life and to show it as maybe another example of community ownership, which we do get in the Botanics in Glasgow. We've got a yarn bombed bench there, and it's just quite a nice, fun thing to do.
and it brings some life into the space. And
Yeah.
also wanted people to feel kind of at home. It was theirs too. It was and benches their self are kind of a symbol, kind of, in I mean, that's one of the reasons we chose the print that I've done is as well. It's a symbol of kind of um as well as being part of a community, you also sometimes need alone time as well. So it kind of has that dual kind of reflection, but also somewhere where it's in a park, or obviously we've got in Gat, but you can stop and anybody can sit there and spend as long or as little, and doesn't matter where you are. But then at the same time, they become memorials as well. People obviously leave benches with their name, and so there's lots of kind of symbolic representations of having that bench there. But and it's been nice to watch it change, kind of to not having anything on it to being quite colourful, and seeing people kind of get involved in it. So that's been quite nice. And the same with we've also got the response for tags, which you can just see come up the screen there, where people can write the responses of what community means to them. So we haven't had a chance to read them, but it's also their chance. People to just respond to the exhibition or to that kind of prompt if they want, and say anything what they want about the community, about the exhibition itself.
Amazing, thank you. And also, I don't have images of it, but yeah, Vicky, you mentioned the Polaroid window. I wondered if maybe you could just explain for people who haven't seen the exhibition what that is.
That was in response to one of the paintings, which I'm trying to remember the name of. I think just a minute. Uh, but maybe you could talk about the workshop, and I'll find the name of the
All
painting.
right, yeah. So basically, we asked people to uh, send in views of Glasgow from their windows as kind of looking in or looking at. So there's a painting that specifically we had a lot of debate about,
James
which is
Morrison's The Window.
James Morrison, The Window. And we can decide whether it was a view of you standing in a room looking out or you looking into the room. And that kind of started a lot of, or
It was
fueled a
nice and
lot of debate.
ambiguous. Yeah.
Yeah. So we thought that was a nice way of people to kind of maybe go back and think about their spaces, and send in some pictures. We invited people through a kind of QR code to send in their pictures of views of Glasgow. So it was quite open. It could be a view on their way to work, could be a view from their bedroom window, it could be a view looking from the street in. And then we decided to print these out in kind of Polaroid format, and to kind of have that kind of nostalgic feel. And then these are displayed on one of the windows in the gallery space, and it's an ongoing thing. So also when we had our family event, we asked people to take some views, some of the kids and a lot of the family members, both parents and children, took some Polaroid pictures, and we added
So
them.
we used Polaroid cameras for that, didn't we?
Polaroid, yeah. And it's an ongoing thing, so please keep sending your pictures in. And so that's also a nice element where the space is changing as the exhibition is actually continuing.
Just before there is a question in the chat, which just before I get to that, we haven't yet mentioned there's also a screening room in the space. So I wondered maybe if you could talk a little bit about the films and why you thought it was important to include film in the exhibition as well.
That was just an opportunity that was offered to us to use the sort of film archive. So we did, but again, it was one of these things. There was so many possibilities. It was pretty huge. So we were trying to find things that related to the paintings, and we did find quite a lot of relevant stuff, but time was kind of running out a bit. So it's maybe not quite as involved as it could have been, but yeah, we've got some interesting examples of stuff, and we also included one of Fozzier's films, which I think is is one of the best films in the selection, actually.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you.
But it's definitely worth
Well,
worth
not, I don't
seeing.
know where this is, but it was, I guess it was a nice contrast because there's a
Yeah,
lot of black and white films.
yeah.
My film is specifically memories of kind of home in relation to some scenes growing up in Woodlands, and particularly about the tenement flats, which are very much a Glasgow identity. So it was quite nice from that perspective.
And we hope to have some screenings of bigger films as well, don't we? Of longer films.
Yeah, we were hoping to, and Sapna I think had lots of films that she wanted to show, um, but we didn't get around to doing that. So, I mean, it's probably true to say that kind of we did run out of time
Yeah.
with kind of trying to get that selection together. However, um, I think I've heard quite a lot of good feedback from people that have watched the films, and it's nice that they're on a big screen in a gallery space and not, where people can see them and give them some time. Um, and it's nice that a lot of people don't know that archive
Mm.
exists in Kelvin Hall,
Yeah.
and they don't take the time, they just don't know it's there. I didn't know it was there as well. Um,
I noticed that there's a few because I've just been to see Everyone to Kenmure Street, the film, and I noticed they used a few of the clips that we used, which are sort of in public ownership. So that was quite good. I knew where they got them from.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and so for people watching at home, so the archive that Fozia and Vicky were referencing there is the National Libraries of Scotland, and they have their moving image archive in Kelvin Hall, and it's an open access centre, so anyone can come and view archival film material and sound as well in there. Just before we finish, there's a question in the chat to me, well, but from Kevin, that says, how much choice did you have when selecting paintings from the Hunterian's collection to fit the exhibition's themes?
Um, well, there wasn't a lot to
There's a
choose from.
limited choice.
There's a
Yeah.
limited choice.
Yeah.
So, what was there? 20 to begin with? I think I can't remember exactly the amount. So it
We didn't
wasn't.
reject many, did we? I only
No.
really remember one that we didn't want.
Yeah, I think they were too similar, or I can't remember. So, no, so it was maybe, I don't know, at the most, I would say about 15 to 18. So we didn't really have a lot to choose from.
No.
Um, but
But
we did have this.
we could have chosen fewer.
Yeah, we could have chosen fewer. So we did
Yeah.
choose quite a lot. But also the other thing to mention is that it was in response to views of Glasgow celebrating. There was a connection to us celebrating the 850 years of Glasgow as a chartered city.
But
So it
the
was paintings of this, something to do with the city, wasn't it?
but the age range that we had or the period that we had to choose from was not that. Wasn't that 850 years, was it?
No,
It was
no,
more
but we
like
had that kind of,
150 years, wasn't it? Of
yeah, I
to
mean,
the
I
sort of
guess,
60s, 1960s from 1820 or something like that, wasn't it? So it
yeah.
was quite a small window.
It was a small window, but I think we didn't mention it that it was in response to 850 years. It was the
Yeah.
exhibition was one
And
of
it
the
was a key period, the industrialization really, wasn't it, of Glasgow and then post-industry in a
I mean, I
way.
think that was one of the interesting things we did do was we did with Anne, who's one of the curators, we did have a guided tour in the archive space
That was really interesting.
where they hold, I don't know what the correct technical term is, the storage place where they hold all the pictures. And that was really interesting. And I believe the public can do that as well. Is that right? Or there are opportunities sometimes throughout the
Uh,
year.
yeah, so throughout every other month, actually, in Calvin Hall, we host a twilight tour, so you can come and see objects from our stored collections, and they're usually curated around a particular theme. So, yeah, we host one every other month, and then in between that, it's Glasgow museums that do one as well. But yeah, it's an access centre for students and researchers and anyone interested in seeing different parts of our collections. And Anne, our art curator, has just mentioned in the chat that the selection was
60.
made
There
from
were
painted
60.
views of Glasgow, yeah, in the collections that are not on display.
So we
Um, yeah.
I think there, yeah, so there was one other point, but I've forgotten what it was. Okay,
Oh,
I'll come back to me.
amazing. Just before we finish, I just wanted to ask you, 'cause you're all in some way, you know, artists, creatives. I wondered if working on this exhibition collaboratively and together as members of the Woodlands community has had any impact or made you reflect or change the way that you practice yourselves as artists.
Um, Not, I don't think it's changed the way um, I work as an artist, apart from maybe making me a bit more, well, I suppose that, yeah, it's made me a bit more aware of what goes into an exhibition and to be really aware of the audience. And it's been great to have multiple opportunities to interact with the audience, which you don't often get. So it's good to have had all that, definitely. Yeah.
Amazing, thank you. I think that's maybe all we've got time for. So sorry, Fazia,
Okay.
we can come back to your point that you remembered. But yeah, the exhibition is on until the 26th of April, Sunday the 26th, I believe. And it's open from Tuesdays to Sundays, from 10 a.m. till 5 p.m. at the Hunterian Art Gallery. It's free entry. And as Vicky mentioned, there is an event tomorrow with Mitch Miller, which I think there's still some tickets for, so you can find details about that on
It's
our
sold out,
website.
actually.
Oh, maybe it's sold
So
out. Might
please
be a
get in
waiting
touch.
list.
Yeah.
And also Fozia is doing a printmaking workshop next weekend for families as well. So there's details about that as well on the website. So thank you both, Vicky and Fozia, for coming today and representing the group. And thank you everyone for joining us online today. A recording of this will be made available on our YouTube channel. I always say shortly, but it depends on when I get around to editing it. But thanks again, everyone, and I hope you all have a lovely weekend when it comes to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for
Bye.
listening.